Dorian blasted the Bahamas as a Cat 5 killer hurricane with winds topping 200 miles an hour and 23-foot waves swallowing homes in the Freeport airport. Now a Cat 3, where will Dorian strike next? Heather Sells has the storm's track and the astonishing images from the Bahamas. Yes.
Swim! Keep going. Swim! Swim!
4 people cut off by floodwaters swimming for their lives as the eye of Dorian passed over the Bahamas. They narrowly escaped drowning. The Grand Bahama Airport, like many homes, is 6 feet underwater. At the flooded Freeport Airport, a member of parliament is urging people to seek higher ground because no one can help them.
They're getting a lot of distress calls. The person's needing rescue, needing to be rescued, but we cannot get to them right now.
The storm has been assaulting the Bahamas for more than 24 hours. It's now stalling out over the islands while wind and waves devastate, destroying as many as 13,000 homes. The total number of those lost in the storm won't be known for days.
Did they say how he died?
I think they say he drowned.
We are in the midst of a historic tragedy in parts of northern Bahamas. Our mission and focus now is search, rescue, and recovery.
Some better news, Dorian's strength is diminishing. It has been downgraded to a Category 3 hurricane with winds dipping to 120 miles an hour. That's compared to 185 on Sunday.
In the U.S., there's immediate concern for Florida. The U.S. Hurricane Center says the storm could pass dangerously close to the East Coast starting later today. A slight shift west could bring the storm onshore. Hurricane warnings are up along the coast. After that, the Carolinas face the greatest threat. The latest track showing parts of eastern North Carolina potentially experiencing hurricane-strength winds.
Mandatory evacuation is now in place.
Evacuations are already underway for those living right along the coast. All lanes of this South Carolina highway are now open in just one direction, away from the coast. Flooding is a big concern, with up to 15 inches of rain possible in some places and a storm surge that could reach 7 feet.
The anticipation of it is nerve-wracking.
CBN's Eric Phillips is in Daytona Beach as thousands await Dorian's arrival.
Here in Daytona Beach, Florida, folks have been told to stay out of the water because of the pending danger. But as you can see, some folks have not been able to heed that warning. It's just too tempting for them. Hopefully they will soon, though, because the worst is yet to come. It's the kind of surf that makes some want to grab their boards and head for the waves. But the double red flags flying high signal no one is supposed to be in the water. Not only are lifeguards leaving, but officials warn the tide is already drawing dangerous debris close to shore, just beneath the surface. The water signaling a new development as the hurricane draws near. Another new order, mandatory evacuations for some residents in the county. The local transit system is helping some to get to the shelters on the other side of the county for free.
That is great for somebody that don't have transportation, is what happened. I had to work yesterday, so my people rode out.
Buses are taking residents to shelters like this one at the Volusia County Fairgrounds. It's a pet-friendly shelter, which means these two sisters could keep Bonnie and Bandit by their side as they ride out the storm.
It's very important. I mean, these are like our kids, you know, because look at all these other hurricanes when these dogs get lost.
Janice Howarth says it makes all the difference, especially in this stressful situation.
She's my comfort dog. She's a big comfort to me. If I get kind of antsy or something, she'll curl up in my lap and I can snuggle with her.
As the storm approaches, there are sure to be some antsy moments, but many people are boarding up businesses and homes and filling sandbags to protect their property as best they can. And in some parts of the county, there will be a curfew from 6 o'clock tonight until 6 a.m. Wednesday morning.
And people that's not heeding this warning, they need to, because this is one of the biggest that we have had.
Here in Volusia County, officials say they're expecting tropical storm force winds to pick up around noontime today and last for 24 to 48 hours. In Daytona Beach, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thanks, Eric. Joe Bastardi is chief meteorologist for Weather Bell Analytics. Joe, did you have any idea this thing that was forming when we talked the other day was going to hit a Cat 5?
Yeah, Pastor, if you remember, I said, watch what happens when it turns west, how intense it was going to get. We have clients in the Bahamas. Nassau Port's a client of ours, and we warned them this is going to be the most devastating, slow-moving hurricane ever. You know, I've been out as publicly as I could be a couple of days before. I'm not trying to play pompous. People could go back and check everything that went out, saying this would be a 2-day affair in these places. And look, here's what happens normally. A storm may stall out over the water, but maybe 150 miles north of the Bahamas, like Carol back in 1954, stalled north of the Bahamas. Storms stall in this area quite often, right, between 25 and 30 north. They're known as the horse latitudes, and they call them the horse latitudes, I believe, if the story's right, because horses that were being transported to the New World would die because the wind would collapse and they could not get the boat all the way across the Atlantic. So what happens is they learn to sail underneath and over the top. So storms stall here. And when they make that west bend, and folks that were watching the other morning, I said, that's like textbook. That's what we learned at Penn State in the 1970s. My professor, Dr. John Lee, showed us map after map of storms that turn west. Andrew, when it turned west, it intensified. Donna, it turns west, it intensifies. And that's what you saw. It was a classic case.
Well, now, how soon is this thing going to turn west? Or do you think will it maybe hit Florida? You think?
No, it's going to drift. It's not going to hit Florida. It's going to stay just offshore. I believe the path is going to be similar to Matthew. The effect's similar to Matthew all the way up to about Charleston. And remember, in Matthew, that broke all sorts of flood records. You're going to have those flood records tied or beaten as far as coastal flooding from North Florida all the way up the coast. The difference is, though, I believe, and we've been saying at my company, Weatherbell, that we believe this is going to go over Cape Fear, Cape Lookout, just west of Hatteras, out near Duck, North Carolina. And just remember, I was telling you when we were on last week that you'd have to look out in Virginia Beach. I think Virginia Beach is going to have hurricane-force wind gusts and 6 to 12 inches of rain. So, and part of that is because when you look at what happens on the south end of Chesapeake Bay, what happens is you get a natural convergence of the wind coming down the bay and out in the Atlantic, and it sort of funnels right into tidewater. So you'll be seeing places on the coast where the storm is getting these wind gusts, and there'll be another area that tries to develop north from Duck toward Virginia Beach and that area. So, and then the final part is New England. Yeah. This thing could come in close enough to New England to deliver tropical storm to hurricane force conditions in southeast New England, specifically the islands and the Cape.
Well, now, Joe, are we talking about major flooding? Are we talking about wind destruction of power lines and all that sort of thing?
Or major. Major coastal flooding is there. We're going to have 6 to 12 inches, locally 15 inches of rain in a band from Georgia all the way up toward southeast Virginia and eastern North Carolina. So that's going to cause flooding. It's not, the good thing about this, though, is it's not going to spread way, way inland so that water keeps coming down, out of the mountains like we saw happen with Florence. And as far as the wind damage goes, I expect power outages up and down the coast. You get wind gusts 100, 120 miles an hour. We believe this will still be a Cat 2, perhaps Cat 3 when it reaches Cape Fear or the closest approach to Cape Fear. You're gonna have power outages. The thing is, it's a slow-moving system. There's something we knew was going to happen last week. And by the way, we're probably going to get a break from U.S. threats till about September 20th. But between September 20th and October 15th, this may ramp up again. You're going to see a lot of storms. You'll get one in the Gulf, one in the eastern Atlantic. They'll probably stay out at sea over the next 2 or 3 weeks after Dorian. But after that, there'll be one more spurt because there's going to be lots of warm air this fall, well into October over the United States. And that's a sign that you see this kind of thing.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate your comments. Joe Bastardi, isn't it?
Wow, fascinating to watch this.
But a lot of flooding. That's not a fun thing to see. Oh. Let me point out, ladies and gentlemen, what Operation Blessing is doing. I have a map that they gave me of where they're located, and they've got facilities all over the state of Florida, up into the Carolinas. They're positioning all kinds of food and trucks and the necessary supplies to do rebuilding. And they'll have a number of churches that will be working with them so they can have food, water, and the necessary things to keep people alive. So Operation Blessing, disaster relief, if you want to help, it's going to be there. CBN Center, Virginia Beach, or you can dial in 1-800-700-7000 or cbn.com. But Operation Blessing will be there, and I think it's so important because we really feel that we could do everything we can to help suffering people. And there'll be a number of your friends and neighbors and associates and people you love who may be in harm's way because of all this flooding of this hurricane. Mm-hmm. And if it does swing, instead of going up the coast, as Joe said, if it takes a direct hit into Florida, it will be devastating, and we hope that doesn't happen.